welcome back. We are so excited you're with us today. I do have the amazing Dave Hall, who's all about retirement. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you, CR. I appreciate the introduction. That was very kind of you.
You help us to understand all things retirement, especially when it comes to risk. Why is this so important to you?
Because it's one of the biggest things that's destroying people's retirement, those risks that they don't look at. We all address risks during our working career with various types of insurance and other planning things that we do, but most people don't look at it as they go into the retirement years. And so it's our goal to help people have a better retirement. We want people to be happy. We want people to be able to enjoy their lives when they get to that point.
And Dave, with that, I do always have these amazing questions. So I want to bring up our first person on our list here, and I want to start getting right into this with Marco. So Marco and Tia Vargas both celebrated their 66th birthdays. Congratulations on their birthdays. Now, within the next 5 years, they would like to retire and enjoy the comfort of their home. They will have a good diversity of assets. So we're talking about Marco's 401ks, their Roth, Lily's pension, Marco's Social Security. So they took out a life insurance policy a few years back to cover end-of-life costs. So you can kind of get a picture of where Marco and Tia are headed right now. But their biggest concern, since most of their funds are investments, is a potential market downturn, Dave. How do we even start with this?
Yeah, but first, let me congratulate them on having some good diversity in their income. This is something we don't see a lot. 95% of retirees don't have a very diversified income portfolio. Now, they may have diversified assets, but most of them just have Social Security and their tax deferred accounts. So here we've got pension plan, we've got some Roth accounts that are going on. They've invested into some insurance products. When we look at what's going on in the market, they have a valid concern. The market's been up so much. Many of us don't even understand how it continues to stay up. Got to expect there'll be a change. One of the first things that they need to look at, and I would recommend, is they should take their age as a percentage of 100, and they need to start principal protecting that. And so if they're both 66, 66% of their assets need to be protected against a market downturn. Now, depending on what that life insurance policy is and how it was structured, maybe they've got some money going into there that would be principal protected, but they've really got to start looking at other assets that not only are protected, but also are going to help keep up with inflation and what's going on there.
So Dave, let's talk about this potential market downturn. This is something that we're talking about. Everyone else is talking about, but people just aren't seeing this. They're saying this market's just going to keep going this way.
Yeah, and it's so unstable. I mean, when you look at it, yeah, it maybe will. Who knows? I mean, it could go another year. None of us know. But when you look at the top economists that are out there looking at what's going on, where we're at, they're saying we just don't even understand how this is even still up, how it has not collapsed. And it's not going to take much. I mean, that's the unfortunate thing when you've got something still unstable. It's like your Jenga game. You know, if you've only pulled out one or two blocks out of the Jenga stack, pretty hard to tip that thing over. But as you get further along in the game, it becomes more and more unstable. And at some point, it's just got to give. And that's really where we are at this point. And obviously, many people believe that and have pulled their money out and put it in cash. But that's problematic, too. I mean, you got such high inflation, they're losing buying power off the cash they have.
And Dave, this leads me to my first question I wanted to throw at you. So how can they safeguard their retirement funds from a market downturn?
The biggest thing they want to do is get into principal protected products. Now, there are various options out there. One is permanent life insurance, which again, they may already have a decent policy. If it was only set up to cover funeral costs, maybe not that large or as large as it should be, but maybe there's an ability to make some extra contributions into there to protect it. If it's an index product, now, if it's a whole life product, probably going to have issues with inflation, not going to keep up with it. If it's a variable product, going to be subject to market downturns, it's not going to be protected. So that would be option one. Option two would be an indexed annuity. Same option there. If the market drops, they don't lose anything. But if the market goes up, they get the upside. And we're seeing that these things are outpacing inflation. And structured notes would be another one. Now, depending on the banks you're with, many of them are not keeping up with inflation either, but that's another principal protected product that's going to do much better than what your CDs or certificates of disappointment, your cash accounts, your savings accounts, whatever they're doing right now.
Dave, you bring up that big word that everybody says when it comes to annuities, but here you are saying that this is a really good opportunity if you do it right.
If someone's against annuities, they've not researched and seen the products and what they are now. I can tell you that. And you haven't looked at the bond market to realize these annuities are going to outperform the bond market. And that's an area that they should be used to better your portfolios. There are top economists. There are people with PhDs. Some of the top people in the country say, look, this is the only way you can truly maximize your retirement is by putting these type of products in, because the insurance companies that support these, their whole goal is to eliminate risk, to get us in a better position. And these products allow us to do that.
Well, Dave, let's jump over to my next question, because now if they do lose money, is it possible they could make it back within a few years? Now, remember, we're talking about Marco and Tia that are both 66. They just celebrated their birthday.
There's an option to do so, but the problem is I assume they're pulling money out of these assets every year. Once you get to that point, the assumption is you're going to start using the money, not putting it back in or just letting it sit there. So the assumption is that, yes, you've got your pension plan. Yes, you've got your Social Security, but these other assets you're going to have to start pulling out. That's where the problem becomes. Is once you take that money out, that loss is locked in. You've lost any opportunity for that portion of those assets to grow. Now, if they were younger, if they were in their 50s, not going to retire for 15 years, yeah, there should be plenty of time to allow that to grow back. But look at anyone who lost a bundle of money in 2008. Again, two things usually happen. One, we lose it and have to spend it. Or two, we now become so conservative, we put it in cash. And then we miss the upswing that's going to happen next time the market comes back up.
So, Dave, I look at this and I say, if they do lose money, but what you're saying is they're on the other side, let me help you so you don't lose your money.
Exactly. Yeah, we'd rather be in a position where we're saying, look, it's not going to be that big of an issue with whatever you have in the market, because we're not relying upon that necessarily for your monthly living costs. We want to get it to where you just don't have to worry about it. Let's take that off the table and say, look, we know with these products, you're not going to lose money. We know that you're going to be at zero. Now, hey, do we want to be at zero? No, but again, we're no worse off than if we had that money sitting in a bank account with a huge upside if the market continues to increase.
And Dave, the other thing I brought up on this question is, can they make it back in a few years? If I'm going to be really aggressive right now, can I make it back in a few years? But what you're saying is let's not look at this as a few years, but let's look at this over a longer period of time.
And we also need to understand what it takes to get back. CR, this is the other problem. And you have a down market, it drops 50%. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, that we're going to have that big of a drop, but hey, there's some individuals out there that think it could be 30, 40, maybe as high as 50%. So let's say you have that big of a drop. So you had $100,000, you now have 50. Well, if you get a 50% rate of return, you're now only at 75,000. You have to have 100% rate of return to even get back up. So a drop is going to take you a lot more years to get back where you need to be, because you've got to have a much higher rate of return because you have a lot less money now.
And Dave, my third question that I have here is, would their RMDs be affected?
They would only be affected in the sense that they would have to take less out. Meaning if the asset value's gone down, that's how RMDs are based upon, is what's the asset value inside of those accounts. So yeah, they would be reduced, which may or may not affect their income stream and what they're expecting to do. But again, now you're pulling money out of those accounts. Depending on what you're doing with that money, you may have locked in losses again, saying, look, I got to take out these RMDs. I'm just putting them in my checking account. Now I've got additional problems that sequence of return risk. That's what we call it on our side. That's really what's being created here.
And Dave, my second part of that question is, how can this affect the Social Security being taxed?
Well, when we look at the various forms of income they still have a pension, they've got traditional assets, they've got a Roth, and then Social Security. I mean, they're probably going to have tax on their Social Security benefits because the pension and the RMDs that are going to have to come out of those traditional accounts. So what we would really want to do is see, hey, is there ways we could move assets into a tax-free environment? And is there something maybe that could be done with that pension? 90% of pension plans are underfunded. And many of them, the average funding is somewhere around 67%. So 67 cents on the dollar may be to their advantage to take a lump sum, pay some tax as they do some conversions to get into a Roth environment and get into a better position to where Social Security isn't going to be such a problem from a tax side.
Dave, I'm sure you get this question all the time, but is there a time where I stopped paying taxes on Social Security because I just got too old?
By law, no, but by fact of getting old, maybe, because what happens is you get to a point that most people run out of other income. if you live into your 90s, many people by that point have run out of all their other streams of income. So all they have left is Social Security. And the way the provisional income calculation works, that means that most retirees at that point are not paying tax on any of their Social Security benefits. So there's no age exclusion, but you'll many times hear people in their 90s saying, yeah, I don't pay tax on my Social Security. Well, you also probably don't have any income left. You're probably living maybe right at the poverty level.
And there you have it. That's the story with Marco and Tia. Dave, final thoughts as we end out today on this particular topic.
Biggest thing I can recommend for anyone is get the education you need so you can start asking the right questions as they relate to your retirement. That's what we're here for, is to help you better educate yourself so that you can ask the right questions for yourself, so you can get answers like this couple's done through these type of events that we put on.
And you can find all that at retirementriskadvisors.com. And we'll see you guys again next time.